former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke will be holding a town hall at the Humble Civic Center tonight at 6 p.m. He recently held 8 town halls across the state, and nearly all of them in Republican congressional districts from Amarillo, Wichita Falls, and Waco to Garland and Fort Bend County. To tell us why he's holding these town halls and to share his thoughts on what's happening in the state and federal legislature, Beto O'Rourke is here with us. Welcome to Hello Houston.
Bienvenido.
Good morning. It's awesome to be with you all. Thanks for having me in.
I want to remind everyone that you are welcome to call in with your questions or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Well, okay, I guess the first question from Warsaw, why are you holding these town halls?
You know, just on a personal level, I need this. I need to be with people right now. There is a lot of change happening in this country very quickly. There are a lot of people who are being hurt by the changes that are taking place in this country. You know, proposed Medicaid cuts to the VA. And from 6 years on the Veterans Affairs Committee in Congress, I know how hard it already is for a veteran to get their service-connected disability claim resolved with the VA or to see a behavioral health specialist for their PTSD. You cut 83,000 jobs, most of them held by veterans, and it's going to hurt people, and nowhere more so than the greater Houston area, which has such an extraordinary legacy of service to country. So how do we meet this moment? The attacks on people, on communities, and on our country, our Constitution, and the rule of law. I don't know anything that is more effective than coming together, and coming together regardless of differences or divisions. You know, if you're a Republican and you voted for Donald Trump, I hope we're going to see you tonight in Humble at the Civic Center at 6 p.m. If you're a Democrat, you're welcome as well. Independents, voters, non-voters, fifth-generation Texans, folks who just arrived in the most diverse city in America, Houston, Texas, 5 days ago. All of you are welcome. And I'm just convinced that if we come together, we're going to figure out how to overcome these challenges, and America will be better for it.
Before we get into all the details that we want to talk to about it, I want to stay right with where you're at there and say such a large number of people, okay, maybe not an honest majority voted for Trump, but a lot of people voted for Trump. And within those that voted for him, he still has a lot of support. The opposite side, the outside of it, says, look at all the trouble that's happening. Look at what's going on. We shouldn't be surprised. He said this was going to happen, yet he still holds on to support. From the time you've spent with all of this, how do you balance that? How do you understand what's happening in the minds of Americans today?
America, by and large, really wanted and really needs change. And for many, and a majority of those who voted in 2024, of the two options, one represented change more than the other. Now, that change might not appeal to them in every single way. I may not like the family separation, the kids in cages, the divisive racist language, but for whatever reason, this country's not working for me. I can't afford to see a doctor. I'm making $7.25 an hour working 3 jobs in Houston, or I'm a full-time school teacher who has to work an additional job just to make ends meet for the privilege of teaching your kids, or I do everything by the book, by the rule, and I still can't get ahead. I need change. I need something different. And Trump was offering that. And he's delivering in many ways, just not in the ways that people really need or expected or were hoping for. I mean, these tariffs are devastating economically. Prices are not coming down quickly enough. He is turning his back on alliances that our fathers and grandfathers won in the Second World War through many times their own lives. He's siding with tyrants and dictators over democracies and free people. This is not what people wanted. So this is an opportunity not just for the Democratic Party, but for people who still want that change to stand up and be counted. And we can't do it in 2026 if we're not ready to do it right now in 2025. So I agree with you that there's a lot of appeal, and I understand the reasons why. And I sure as hell hope that Democrats do not judge a single person who voted for Trump, because people had very legitimate, valid reasons for doing that. We have to respond by offering that dramatic, bold, innovative change that people are looking for, and the field is open.
You know, you keep saying the word change. I would say he offered hope. And I think that's very different than change, because it comes with, it might work out, it might not. But as long as you have hope, we hope the war ends. We hope prices come down. We hope that we solve diseases. We hope. And he offered that. And I think people said, you know what? The other candidate, they're just going with whatever. Kamala's just going with whatever's there. Whereas Trump, whether they believed he could do it or not, and I think that's why he's being forgiven on so many levels. Like, well, he offered us hope, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. You have a flu with the chickens, and you just don't get those egg prices down like you hoped to. Bill Clinton won on I'm From a Town Called Hope. I think hope is a huge part of the American lexicon. And more than I'm going to change things, here's what I hope is going to happen.
What do we remember from Barack Obama's 2008 campaign? Hope and change.
Right.
Those are perennial, eternal issues that we should be running on. And you can't just say them. And in fact, the trick in this kind of politics is you have to offer people that hope and offer people that change, regardless of what you say. They have to see it, they have to believe it, and they have to feel it, to the excellent point that you're making right now. And in addition, if you feel like you've been screwed and let down by this country, despite playing by the rules and doing everything by the book, then you might ask yourself, what do I have to lose by allowing myself to hope with someone different? And then add to that this incredibly corporate, sterile, safe political environment where nobody speaks out of line, everybody reads everything they say. And here comes Trump, bull in a china shop, just blowing through all of that political correctness and safe speech, saying what's literally on his mind, as crazy as it is. We're going to invade Greenland. We're going to take over Canada as the 51st state. We're going to deport people without due process, including U.S. citizens, kids with cancer without their medications. I mean, it's just a blizzard of bizarre behavior that is incredibly captivating and dramatic, and in some ways the antidote to a politics that hasn't worked. For us on the other side of this, what's our answer going to be? If it's more of the same, we're going to lose in 2026 and 2028. If we offer hope, real hope, that is embodied in something that feels and looks different, that change, then we've got a shot.
I just want to remind folks, too, that we do invite Republicans to join us here on the program and to share their side of the story, too. Beto O'Rourke accepted our invitation and joins us today.
And so, Beto, you are from El Paso. I am from South Texas. We understand. We were talking about how there are so many parallels. Border cities, Starr County had been for 100 years, had voted Democrat. In South Texas, we saw major changes and shift which usually Democratic Party had a hold on for years. And in the last 7 to 8 years, we have seen this shift happen where they voted for President Trump, a county that had been voting for Democrats for 100 years. What happened and what is happening? What's going to happen next?
This is an excellent question because these counties, Hidalgo County, El Paso County, Maverick County, they had a ringside seat to the cruelty of the first Trump administration, the kids in cages, the family separation, the invocation of violence. There's an invasion of animals who are coming to rape and to kill us. It inspired somebody from Allen, Texas to drive 600 miles to El Paso and slaughter 23 people, claiming he was repelling the invasion of Hispanics who were taking over this country. After that happened, Trump's share of the vote in El Paso County actually increased. I think that has more to do with Democrats and the failing within my party than it has to do with Trump. We have experienced, as you know from your home in Brownsville, unprecedented levels of migration, not controlled, not regulated, people who we don't know their background, their identity, or where they came from or what they're going to do in this country. And I remember being in Eagle Pass, and this woman, lifelong Democrat, stops me. She said, Beto, how would you feel if 20 strangers were tromping through your backyard at 2 a.m. in the morning? And I've got 3 kids at home. Man, that would scare me as well. And she says, and how does it feel when the president doesn't show up or people don't acknowledge our concerns? They say, this is just a Republican talking point. No, it's not. This is my life, and you better damn well respond to it. And again, I think one party seemed to be taking it seriously, and the other party was explaining it away. So if we don't show up and listen to people and then don't try to explain away their legitimate concerns and fears, then we have a chance of earning their trust. If we fail to do that, you will continue to see the erosion of support for Democrats in border counties like mine and like the one that you are from, and we will be an irrelevant party in the state of Texas and nationally before long, because this state, as population continues to shift and move to Texas, will hold even more electoral college voting power. And if the Democratic nominee in 2032, when we have 44 electoral college votes, can't win Texas, they're not going to the White House. They can win all the blue wall states, and they'll still lose the highest position in the land. Texas matters more than anywhere. And these counties that you're talking about, Celeste, that's the future.
But do you think that Texas is still an investable property for Democrats? I mean, because as we continue to see, Colin Allred ran against Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz won. You know, we're continuing to see this pattern where is Texas, again, still an investable property for Democrats?
I think Houston and Harris County offer us the answer on this. You know, prior to 2018, it was kind of a toss-up county. You know, 10 years before that, it was reliably red. In 2018, because of the campaign that so many of us ran, we really ran the tables on judgeships, on county commissioners' races, on the county judges' race, on congressional races, Lizzie Panel Fletcher. And then in my race against Ted Cruz, Houston's, hometown senator, we got within 2.5 points, won more votes than any Democrat and in history, and won more of the major urban areas and surrounding counties since LBJ in '64. So the response to that from Republicans in power, however, was to change the rules of voting and to make this the toughest state in the nation in which to register and cast a ballot. It just means that those of us who want to overcome this have to work that much harder. And we also have to acknowledge, Celeste, some of the truths that you laid out about our failure to address real legitimate issues that people are going through, including in these border counties.
You know, it's ironic to me that when Ann Richards beat Clayton Williams, it was mostly because Clayton Williams, who is a Republican, was not a gentleman. You know, the comments he made about the weather, he just enjoyed he wouldn't shake her hand at a dinner. And I think people almost said, you know what, I'm not going to vote for someone who's not at least polite. Well, all that has gone out the window. So you can't run on being a nice guy, and you're a nice guy. So if you're going to run for office, and I don't know if you're here today as an observer or
you can make
or
an
a
announcement.
candidate.
You can make an announcement, Beto.
If you want to
Make
have
an
some
announcement.
breaking news is awful. We love breaking news here at HPM. But how does one run in Texas as a nice guy and who goes and visits all the counties, speaks all the languages, is clearly fun to be around? Where's your MO?
Yeah, less about me, but more to the spirit of your question. I don't know if the choice is between nice and mean. I think the choice is between fight or surrender, strength or weakness. And I really see people in America, and maybe this has always been the case, responding to strength. And for many, they saw that in Donald Trump. For many, they saw that in Republican candidates and office holders across the state of Texas. I often see that in the form of cruelty and meanness. But these folks know what they believe, and they will go to the mat for it. I see Democrats too often calculating, working with focus groups and consultants and pollsters and data analysts, and let me calibrate this message just right. We'll grow it in a lab and we'll send it out there, and that's going to win the deal. That doesn't look strong. That doesn't feel like what I need right now. And in our party, you see people like Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, surrendering to Elon Musk and Donald Trump on the latest government funding bill, this continuing resolution that basically was a grab bag for the administration to do whatever they wanted at a time that they're undermining the Constitution, rule of law, running roughshod over the criminal code with the most corruption, the greatest corruption we have ever seen. We want to fight her in that position. We want to fight her at every place on the ballot. That, I think, is the answer to your question. I think you can still be civil. I think you can still engage with people. And we reach out to the Harris County Republican Party and invite their members to come to the meeting tonight because Democrats do not have a monopoly on the truth or good ideas or solutions right now. And I believe if we're going to overcome Trump, it's going to require a united front and the broadest possible coalition. So I can't talk down or judge or, to your point, be mean to people and expect to win their trust, either as a candidate or somebody who's trying to organize across the state. But we do need to show strength, and we do need to fight.
I want to go back to 2022. And at that point, nationally, a lot of people were looking at the state thinking, could it switch? Could this go blue? Could we at least be purple? And people had a lot of hope there that there's that hope word again, was going to happen. And then if I'm remembering correctly, the margin of loss was about 12 points. And you look at that and you're like, there's no hope for this state leaving being red. It's if Beto couldn't do it with the attention, why do you believe there is hope now for that shift to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of those folks who was like, I looked at the landscape and I saw, the most obscene abortion ban in America, just to to show you just how bad this was, they studied this in 19 months after Greg Abbott signed it, after he told us he was going to eliminate rape, because there's no exception for rape, incest, or the life of the mother in the abortion bill. 26,000 Texas women and girls were forced by that law to carry the child of their rapist. When you look at a power outage in the energy capital of the world that cost perhaps up to 700 Texans their very lives, including an 11-year-old boy in Conroe, Texas, when you see these attacks on public schools and public educators, somebody's got to stand up and fight for this. And somebody's got to overcome this. And I thought, we ran an extraordinary campaign in 18. Let's do this again in 22. Let's bring the band back together. Let's go to every county and let's win this thing. But we were also swimming upstream. The president of our party was in power. He was an extraordinarily poor communicator. He wasn't sharing the message of his accomplishments. Certainly wasn't coming to Texas. I raised and spent $80 million. Greg Abbott raised and spent $140 million. Mm-hmm. And that is not to speak of what Ken Paxton spent, what Dan Patrick spent, what other Republicans spent. So very, very tough environment. And then last thing, and this is something that I've learned from that, you can't have a Wendy Davis or a Colin Allred or a Beto O'Rourke punch through on their own. You need every position on that ballot filled with a Democrat from Amarillo to Nacogdoches. They may not win those races, but they're going to draw in more voters in their local communities. And statewide, you really need a ticket. You need a strong candidate at governor, at senator, at lieutenant governor, at attorney general, at land commissioner, at railroad commissioner, at agriculture commissioner. And Democrats just have not put that together, except when Ann Richards and that team, if you go back to that generation, they really understood it. We've got to run like that. If we don't, I think even though the wind might be at our back in 26, it's going to be very, very hard.
You made a statement, if I'm quoting you correctly, just a few minutes ago, you said overcome Trump. Can that be enough to fight against what you see as wrong out there? Or is there more belief in you've got to have a plan, you've got to have it, and forget about Trump, forget about that, what's going on there. You need to talk on just your message. Is that the wrong way to approach it now?
No, I think you're absolutely right. It is not enough to be against somebody. That is never going to move the needle sufficient for victory. You have to offer people hope. We keep talking about this, but what is hope? It is a vision for how your life will be better if this candidate wins. The fact that you'll be able to afford to see a doctor, that your school is going to be fully funded, that if you're an educator, you don't have to work that second or third job to make ends meet. If you're a veteran, you can get in and out of the VA the same day that you request that appointment, and this country is going to fulfill its end of the bargain. That we're going to treat each other. I know that this is a crazy idea with the civility and the decency and respect that we deserve as Texans and human beings. That for me is a super hopeful message. That's the state that I want to live in. I've got an 18, a 16, and a 14-year-old at home. That's the state I want them to grow up in and be proud of. And that's the hope that I hold on to. Whether I'm a candidate, whether I'm supporting candidates, that's what I'm fighting for. So great point. It cannot be just about Trump. It can't just be about Ken Paxton, John Cornyn, or Ted Cruz. It has to be about all of us and our future.
But, Beto, I want to go back to that, quote unquote, fighting against Trump. And it has to be, don't you think it has to be more than hope? Because people are clearly voting on more conservative policy. Yeah. And so when we're looking at what people are voting on, and not just sound bites of hope and change. We've heard hope. We've heard change. People are done. I think people voted for Trump to send a very clear message to the Democrat Party. We believe in conservative values. In South Texas, I know certain representatives won based on family, God, and country. What is the messaging that Democrats are sending to those people that let them know that it's not just about hope, it's not just about change? We are going to do things. What are you all going to do to show people that want conservative policy?
Great question. So give you an example, and specific to South Texas. As you probably know, there is no full-service VA hospital in South Texas. If we're about country, if we're about patriotism, if we're about honoring the service and sacrifice of those who've given us our freedom, you better invest in a VA hospital there so that those veterans don't have to drive to San Antonio or Houston to receive the care that we owe them and that they earn. That is a concrete example of what we can point to. If I care about the quality of life of people in South Texas, why is there not a TxDOT-funded loop road around South Texas. Every other part of the state has it. Are you somehow less important because you're 98% Mexican American? You're hard to travel to. Your per capita income is the lowest in the state? No, you're just as important as everyone else, including the folks in Houston and Dallas and San Antonio. That's a concrete thing that we can point to. Are you struggling working at the Houston airport making $7.25 an hour? Do you deserve better because you're putting in a full day's work and you don't want to be on benefits, you don't want to be on SNAP, you don't want to be on a government handout? Absolutely. Let's raise the minimum wage so that you can live in dignity. That's a concrete example of something that we can do. So you're right. It can't be amorphous hope and change, although I think at the end of the day, you've got to feel those things based on the concrete proposals that we're making. But to this point, you won't know that if you don't show up in South Texas. If you're not in McAllen, if you're not in Donna, if you're not in these places that go overlooked, disregarded, taken for granted by Democrats, which is how Republicans ate their lunch in these last 3 election cycles. So got to show up for everyone everywhere. You can't be too blue, too red, too remote, too urban. Everybody counts in Texas.
Well, we have a call from Greg in Kingwood. And I think he's saying the Democratic Party needs to change. Greg, what are your thoughts?
Hey, guys. Hey, I agree with Beto. Look at South Texas. We've had the idiot Musk blow up 3 of the biggest rockets in the universe that we know of. And wait till it blows up on the pad. His record is great for that big missile. And wait till it blows up on the pad, takes out the town. And then, link Abbott to Musk and the Republicans to Musk. What did they give to Musk to move everything here? And, but, you look at when is the time?
Greg, thank you for the call. I want to remind everyone the number here is 713-440-8870. Beto?
Look, I think that we have absolutely got to be excited about innovation and creativity and risk-taking. And even though I don't like a lot of what Elon Musk is doing at the federal level with Doge and these indiscriminate job cuts.
And just to clarify, Elon Musk did announce he's leaving the Trump White House. And he's leaving the Doge.
I saw that, and he's going to return full-time to his businesses. And maybe this is unorthodox to say, but I take some pride in that he has chosen Texas. And when I'm in Brownsville, there is a ton of pride in his investment and his risk taking there. To the caller's point, there's also a need to make sure that we're controlling for potential disaster, harm to human health, the environmental toll that's taking. And I think most of us, conservative, liberal, could agree on that. Like, go for it, Elon. Like, I love your vision of making us a multi-planetary species. I love the innovation that is coming out of this country through all the different companies that you have led. But let's make sure that the people who work there, the people who live around there, are taken care of. And Democrats, you all made this point better than I did earlier. We cannot define ourselves by who we're opposed to and who we hate. We also have to be for innovation, for risk-taking, for boldness. And if anything, the Democratic Party has now been defined by just how sterile and unambitious it has been lately. And I think there's a great opportunity to change that. So
and disconnected. I think a lot of people felt that the candidate, Kamala Harris, could not speak to people, whereas President Trump could go on Joe Rogan and chat. So here we have you who would essentially fit that bill, but yet you have not won. Why is that? What is the messaging, and where are y'all missing the mark when it comes to messaging?
Yeah, well, so, there's some precedent for this, right? This state was solidly Democratic for a century before a Republican finally broke through. We've been in the wilderness now for more than 30 years, and it's going to be really tough. We're not going to get out of there overnight. We've seen cause for hope. I mentioned how transformative 2018 was across the board, especially in Harris County. I mentioned how Republicans in power responded to that. In the wake of Shelby versus Holder, the Voting Rights Act no longer taking hold, the protections for states like Texas, Republicans, and look, Democrats do this in Illinois, Democrats do this in New York. So this is not a Republican-Democrat thing. This is a human nature thing. When you're in power, your human inclination is to protect that power. And that's what Republicans are doing in Texas, which just makes it a little bit harder. So to answer your question, I think we need an across the board, like at every position on the statewide ballot, we need quality, well-funded candidates on every position down ballot, from justice of the peace, county commissioner, state rep, state senate, U.S. Congress. We need someone challenging. If we do that, if it's a true united front, and if we stop being closed off and so damn judgmental about someone who voted for Trump before, or someone who doesn't exactly share our views on every single cultural issue, and really open this tent up to people who want to see a better country that actually serves everyone, we're going to have a chance to win some of these elections. If we fail to do that, I think we're going to continue to commit the same mistake in the same way and receive the same result. And so for me, I need to see those kind of changes, and I want to be part of that kind of change to have the hope that we're actually going to win in Texas.
Which we did get a YouTube question, and I think that this is based on what you were just saying. Beto, where can you influence the most in your current capacity?
I think doing these town hall meetings and elevating and amplifying people's voices out of Wichita Falls, out of Amarillo, out of tonight in Humble, where we're going to be at the Civic Center at 6 p.m. This is a great way to help my fellow Democrats who refuse to show up, frankly, folks, in these places and listen to people and do it unfiltered, unscreened. Anybody can have the microphone. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, does not matter. No me importa. You get to say what you want to say. I need to hear that. When I was a congressman for 6 years, I held a town hall every month. I was scared out of my wits going into that. What is someone going to say to me? Hey, Beto, I'm so disappointed that you voted for this thing. Hey, Beto, when you were campaigning, you promised to do X, Y, or Z. Where the hell are you on that? That made me such a better representative because I feared my constituents and I did not want to be embarrassed in front of them. And I told my team and myself, we had better deliver on everything we promised. Every issue that's been brought to our attention, we better be responsive to it. And we were. And I'm deeply gratified and fulfilled by that experience. I want to see more Democrats doing more of that work.
You know, to Celeste's point, I think Republicans are direct. I don't always think they're right, but they say, we're getting rid of illegal gang members. And Democrats say, well, wait, due process. They say, to hell with due process. We're getting rid of them. Mm-hmm. They say there are two genders, man and woman. To hell with transgenders, it's two. And Democrats say, well, wait a minute. You know, biology plays a point. Even you just said, look, Elon Musk did a lot of things that I kind of agree with. I mean, I'm glad he's in Texas. And I think that's where Democrats fail. They try to play both sides of the philosophical dice, and the Republicans don't. The Republicans say, this is how we're going to do it. We're going, no rape, no incest, abortion is illegal. And Democrats say, well, wait a minute, this isn't quite fair. And guess what? The Republicans keep winning based on black and white as opposed to purple.
Yeah, I don't know if I totally agree with that, and actually,
that's a Democratic response.
Yeah,
I don't know if I totally agree with that because let's look at both sides of it, Frank.
Well, I think you're right. This may be part of the problem, and I may be the center of that in this conversation. But I also got to be honest and true to myself, and I'm not going to say something because it polls well or it's the politically hot thing to do at the moment. And who are my inspirations? I look at Robert Kennedy Sr., the good. I look at JFK. I look at FDR. I look at, to pick some Republicans, I look at Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, those folks were willing to address the complexity of life. Read Lincoln's inaugural address, his second inaugural address. I mean, this is a mind blower. 300,000 people that he was the commander-in-chief for have just lost their lives. And in his second inaugural, he's like, who am I to judge, which side is in the right? This is for God, but I'm doing what I think is correct. He's the most inspiring American who's ever walked this planet. He happens to be a Republican, and he didn't speak in black and white. So, maybe I'm an anachronism, and maybe I'm wrong for these times, and that's probably cause enough for me to consider whether I should ever run. But I do think we want to be honest. I do see people responding to that. But to the point you're making and that Celeste made earlier, I do think that Democrats equivocated when they knew the truth. If you have a problem at the border, say you have a problem at the border. Don't say that this is just a Republican talking point. Don't try to explain it away. Don't say that Biden's implemented this change to the asylum program and this is going to make your life better. You're telling me your life is not better. I need to honor that, repeat that, and fix that. And if I don't deserve to be in office. And if I'm not willing to do it, they're going to pick the guy who is willing to do it. If I'm not willing to be tough on crime to make sure that you feel safe in your home, they're going to elect the guy who will be tough on crime to make sure that you're safe in your home, even if that guy is going to suspend your constitutional rights, even if he's going to do some things that you find to be completely atrocious. And so I will take the spirit of your point that we need to be as clear and direct as we can, but I will never sacrifice the truth in order to achieve that. I'll never be anyone other than who I am in order to do that. So I think it's a good point overall, though, and I think Democrats could benefit from that.
We are speaking with Beto O'Rourke, and our phone number here, if you'd like to join the conversation, is 713-440-8870. We've got a few calls on the line, so let's try and work through them. Benjamin, you are up first from Wharton. What's on your mind?
Hey, Ernie. Good morning or good afternoon. This question is for Beto. Beto, when you were running both of your campaigns, I reached out to you to offer my help. But all I got from your team, this is not your fault, your team was asking for money, $20, $50, $100. And my question to them was, well, what does this equate to? How many votes is my money going to get you? What I was offering, hey, I can get you 1,000 votes, maybe 10,000 votes, just by tailoring a message. Give me access to the voter, and I can tailor a message for them, but your staff would not even hear me out.
Benjamin, I'm going to hold you right here so Beto has a chance to answer it.
Yeah, Ernie, so first of all, thank you for the offer to help and for trying to do the right thing, because you're making an excellent point. Money is just the means to reach voters. If you can reach them directly, even without the money, all the better. And that's why I believed in a 254 county strategy. That's why when I ran for Congress and won, I knocked on 16,000 doors myself. The money is just the means. The social media message, the TV broadcast, the radio ads, they're all a poor substitute for human-to-human connection. That's the most profoundly powerful thing we can do. And in a democracy, government of, by, and for the people, it's people getting with people. So, if I were to do this again, Ernie, I'd want you on speed dial, and I'd want to ask you who you'd be willing to talk to on my behalf, how you could relay the message in terms that your neighbors, your friends, your family would understand best. We can't cook this up in a lab in D.C. or Austin. It's not going to come from a consultant. It has to come from the people. That's what I really believe in. In our group, Powered by People, our volunteers are out there doing that right now through voter registration and voter contact and voter organizing. So I believe in it. And if I'm out there again, Ernie, I want to do a better job and honor your offer to volunteer.
Well, I'm the Ernie here. I think it's
It was Benjamin.
Oh, Benjamin. Sorry. No, I thought he said his name was Ernie.
Beto, you're talking about voters. We know that you had a lot of traction with young voters. We also know that young voters are less likely to go out and vote. How are you inspiring younger voters to vote?
So our group, Powered by People, we have about 1,300 active volunteers, and we train them to become volunteer deputy registrars. And then we deploy them to campuses, to Texas Southern University, to Rice, to the University of Houston, for example. And we meet them where they are, literally, help them register to vote. And then this is the thing that we do that I don't think anyone else does. Our Powered by People volunteers then say, hey, Celeste, could I get your cell phone number and stay in touch with you? And 18-year-old Celeste says, sure. 30 days after I met you, hey, Celeste, this is Beto. I want to make sure you got your voter registration card in the mail. Yep, I got it. Great. And then maybe 30 days before the election, Celeste, here are the forms of voter ID that you can use at the polling location at University of Houston. And then, on the eve of elections, here are the early voting locations. Here are the candidates who align with the values that you and I talked about. And then I just stay on your case until I know that you have voted. And Harris County releases the voting data every day during early voting. And so once Celeste has voted, I check her off my list. I stop bugging her. That method that we employed in 2024 produced a 79.5% turnout rate for 18 to 29-year-olds. Nationally, that average is 42%. So we know this works. The question is, can I go from 1,300 volunteers to 13,000 volunteers and really do this on a statewide basis? But I don't think money's going to fix it, to the point that Benjamin, not Ernie, made earlier. I don't think it's messaging. I don't think it's social media. I think it's people connecting with people and doing this really hard work that you literally cannot phone in.
713-440-8870. Interesting you said phone in, because we have Clay on the line. Clay, what's on your mind?
Hello. First, I just want to correct something I heard that's wrong. It's not the Democrat Party. It's never the Democrat Party. It's the Democratic Party. George W. started calling it the Democrat Party as a way to belittle Democratic Party members. So,
sorry if we made that error for you, Clay. Your question
sorry about
before
that, Clay.
we
That was
lose
me.
Beto due to time. What's up?
The other thing is, Beto, why don't you run for chair of the Democratic Party in Texas? It's feckless.
That's fair.
And they need someone with energy and vision on top, or it's never going to go anywhere. I think that might be the way that you can contribute the most right now. I know it's a behind-the-scenes job, and it's out of the spotlight most of the time, but maybe you could put it in the spotlight a little bit more.
Clay, let's find out. Beto.
Clay, so thank you for that. And I'm cool to hang out behind the scenes. I just want to be helpful, and I just want to be useful. The Texas Democratic Party just elected a new chairman. His name is Kendall Scudder. I've got high hopes for him. I think he truly believes in a 254-county go-everywhere strategy, and we want to support that. What I think I can do, to the spirit of your question, is to complement that work by, for example, helping to recruit candidates in places where the Democratic Party has not been running them, and so there's no one giving voice to the kind of specific changes that we just talked about earlier. And then, who knows in what other ways I might be able to help, but I'm going to do everything I can with what I have wherever I am across this state.
One more time, tonight is where and when, Beto?
We're going to be at the Humble Civic Center at 6 p.m., and I just want to triple underscore, this is open to everyone. You do not have to be a Democrat. I really actually want to hear from you if you're a Republican, if you voted for Donald Trump, if you're dissatisfied with the Democratic Party. If you love the Democratic Party and you voted for Kamala Harris, you're welcome as well. This one is open to everyone, because I think it's going to take everybody to get this country back on track.
Beto, you started your national journey with Will Hurd, who was a Republican. If you could take another road trip with any Republican, who would it be?
It's funny, I just put a call into Adam Kinzinger, who I believe has moved to Houston.
Ernie's
recently.
friend.
Okay. And I just said, hey, Adam, he and I served together. I'm in Houston. I understand you live here now. Would love to grab a cup of coffee. And who knows if that doesn't turn into a 2,000-mile
Are you going to run for
road trip.
Senate? Are you going to run for Senate?
I don't know.
Would you like to run for Senate?
I would love to serve this state as a senator. I'd love to be out there campaigning. You all know that. If I could do that all the time, I would. It's just a question of, is this the right thing to do for Texas?
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Former
you.
Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke. Beto, again, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you, Celeste. Thank you all.